1920, Brooke, Indiana was the birthplace of what's become Newton County's annual Pumpkin Vine Fair. It was organized by local farmers and breeders with the help of the brand new Indiana Farm Bureau. This ribbon on display at the Newton County Historical Society is from that very first fair. It was awarded to Howard Washburn for a well-oiled black hog. After 2 years of enthusiastic support for the stock show, local farmers and county leaders came together to create a permanent annual event. Membership certificates were sold for $10 each to men in the county, and Roland Ade became the first president of the Newton County Fair Association, serving 45 years. In 1922, the fair was moved to its permanent home at the county farm in Washington Township. The Roaring Twenties brought dramatic social, economic, and political change. Newton County's Warren T. McRae was elected governor of Indiana in 1920. Syndicated humorist George Ade of Brooke teamed up with Purdue University alum David Ross to buy 65 acres and donate construction funds for Purdue football's Ross-Ade Stadium. Of national significance, Prohibition took effect, and women got the right to vote. In May of 1924, members of the Women's Club of Kentland made a special request of the Newton County Commissioners
to secure and hold, for the pleasure and benefit of all the people of Newton County, a small tract of timbered land as a public park. There are a few tracts remaining along the Iroquois River that might be secured for such a purpose. Respectfully, the Federated Club, Women of Newton County.
The following year, in a park-like setting along the Iroquois River, a new 8-sided building was erected with the help of some county funds to showcase the talents of Newton County. The Floral Building, now known as the Domestic Arts Building, showcasing culinary excellence, baking, canning, sewing, quilting, gardening, and fine arts. So why an octagonal building? Polygonal barns like the Floral Building were popular in central and northwest Indiana in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These two are examples at fairgrounds in Winnemac and Portland, Indiana. Barn expert Duncan Campbell says multi-sided structures provide more usable floor space than a traditional box-style barn.
It's not that unusual to have an octagon building built in the 1925 period. But it's kind of unusual to see one be altered in this way. So we're looking at probably the original part at each end. I'm assuming they just took one end off and moved it down and built linear walls in between.
The alteration came during the Great Depression. Works Progress Administration, WPA laborers, expanded the exhibit space in 1938.
They already had a cupola probably to start with, and so finding a way to continue it just, makes sense.
The newly expanded women's building would also hold girls' 4-H projects.
The general statement about the WPA work, it was very, very high quality work.
Ronald Dawson accompanies his wife Rose to the building with her domestic arts entries, but he first stepped in as a small child.
I was about 6 years old, and I stayed with my aunt and uncle out here at the farm. And from that day on till now, I've always been amazed by the structure of the building. The amazing thing is they didn't have power tools. They had hand tools.
Buildings that, like the barn behind us, they've been around for 100 years. They've been used and loved for 100 years. And it's important, I think sometimes communities can lose sight of that. People are still using these structures. They still make a difference in people's lives.
Rich and Janet Miller and their 2 daughters moved into Janet's grandparents' farmhouse just across the road from the fair in the late 1960s.
My name is Rich Miller, and I've been in Newton County since I was about 3 years old, I guess. We went to the fair back then. My dad was worked with the fair board. He did the agriculture building.
As a kid, sometimes Rich stayed overnight at the fair with his animals. and plotted to get goodies in the Domestic Arts Building.
As a young boy, I remember going in, sneaking in there sometimes at night and trying to steal a pie out of the cabinets, because you could get in through the windows.
After baked good judging, I would walk through and all the ladies were lined up. I mean, there were lots of ladies in those folding chairs listening to everything the judge had to say. But sometimes afterwards, we could get tastes or treats. So I was definitely excited about that.
My first memory of the Domestic Arts Building was a picture that Grandma exhibited of myself in the Domestic Arts Building. And I remember going with her to go find it, I guess, in the domestic, because we would have gone to find it of some sort. So I remember going to the Domestic Arts Building and just seeing that picture. It was kind of neat to just see yourself.
We went to South Padre Island, and of course it was the first time Drake had ever been in the ocean. And I would say, Drake, it's time to go. Come on, we gotta go. No, Grandma, just a little bit longer. No, Grandma, just a little bit longer. Well, as you can, if you look at his face, it's kind of red. I think he was kind of sunburnt, but it was a nice trip, and I guess it's kind of a cool picture.
One of my memories as a kid is going in there and seeing all the food, because they had the part of the exhibits would involve canning and, as you well know, and pie. I mean, it was, I never, as a small child, really understood what was going on. I thought maybe it was a restaurant, and a good one at that. But so I remember distinctly going in and seeing all these jars, and it was really kind of stepping into a museum also.
I was probably 5 years old, maybe 4-ish, going on 5-ish. The fair was later in the summer, and it was a cool evening, and my brother had taken me to the fair. Let's ride the rides and eat the popcorn and eat the cotton candy. And we had been all over the fairgrounds. I was just riddled with mosquito bites. It was very humid and kind of dampish, chilly, hazy. Sun was setting, and we went into the Domestic Arts Building because it was warm. And I've since learned that it's always 20 degrees warmer than any place on earth. But my first experience was going in that evening, along about sunset, and seeing all these wonderful things.
This building is a family tradition. So it started with my grandma, Marie Morgan, and she was a superintendent, dedicated. I think at that time, I think she came early morning and stayed late at night, all dressed to the nines in her dress and nylon hose and pearls, and treated that building like it was her home. Right along with her, my Aunt Lois Hensel was a superintendent. I started helping her as her health declined more, then I became a superintendent. So it's been a passed down tradition.
From the time I was little, this was her thing. She was Clyde Bland, and she and my Aunt Ruth Warwick, they did the women's building. And of course, and Marie Morgan was involved too. And I just remember coming in and hanging out with them. So I finally baked a pumpkin bread last year, and I won the trophy, for the pumpkin stuff. And I thought, and that meant a lot to me because I was doing it for my grandma.
I know my mother, my grandmother both entered paintings in the fair years ago. And my aunt and my mother for many years were in charge of the floral show. So we've had a real family connection.
First memories of the Domestic Art Building was when my grandma would come to the cakewalk or come for bringing food or different things that she would be baking at home, German chocolate cake.
I brought German chocolate cake, white cake, after I got Dorothy Trumbull's recipe, because she left it behind, and so I've won on that.
I was known for baking cookies, and one year my friend Julia East and I were working together in the building, and I won Grand Champion Cookie and got my trophy. Well, she puts this big sign out in front of the office, home of the grand champion cookie. So we always did a lot of fun things in there.
Between being on a 4-H and being a superintendent, I did enter baking and flowers with my mom and my sister, my oldest sister, who was like a second mom to me, in the women's building. We always had a friendly competition against each other. Critters get in it. We were always afraid to open those doors because we were going to come across something. I'll never forget. I think it was with Deb Arsenal, or was it Deb Messer? Maybe all three of us. We opened the door and this raccoon just flew across. We about had a heart attack. We slammed the door shut.
We used to have a lot of mice. But we've cleaned out those cabinets. We don't leave anything there, so that's helped.
Did we even have
with
a raccoon or a fox or something?
We've had a fox in there. Well, dead when we found it. We've had dead birds. We've had raccoons living in there. And the year we painted the red and green on the front part, we cleaned first, and that was the most disgusting it's ever been. That was very bad. The raccoons made themselves at home in our building.
I was assigned to work on the cases in the middle of the building. You had to get down on your knees and find mice sometimes. So that part is creepy to me.
The Fair Board has done a great job of securing the building, so we haven't had the critters lately in the last couple years that we used to have. And we wipe down all the walls, wash down all the countertops, sweep the floors, clean out the inside of the cases, clean out the inside of the fridge, wash the windows, wipe the things that the quilts hang on.
Once it's all cleaned up and people are in here, it's a beautiful, wonderful building to be in.
The fair, like the Domestic Arts Building, brings people together from all corners of Newton County, easing a sometimes palpable polar division.
It does bring everybody together in kind of a shared interests, in addition to preserving the traditions that everybody in this agricultural community appreciates. But there's another aspect growing up out there. Sometimes that was the first place that we really met or interacted with kids from other schools, because at that time the grade schools were all in the towns and you really didn't do many activities outside of your own town. So it's the one place that started the opportunity to meet people from other areas of the county.
They're people I only see once a year at fair, and I look forward to seeing them every year and just enjoy each other. You get to run into people you don't get to see very often.
It's a homecoming every year, a homecoming. It's awesome. Family members come home to spend Fair Week here.
So on that first Saturday, we generally judge all the domestic arts, crafts, textiles, quilts, the fine arts, and the photography. Typically Monday is the foods day. We've had an auction in the past where the food was auctioned off and a portion went to the baker and then a portion to the Domestic Arts Building. In the last 2 years, we've done a cakewalk instead, and the Extension homemakers have been wonderful about bringing in items for that.
We even have women that contact me and say, I want to donate to the cakewalk, and they may not even be exhibiting in the building, but they want to help out the building.
And then Tuesday is typically our floral day, so our floral exhibits come in on that day and are judged.
We had a little girl win Youth Fairy Garden. That's one of the floral exhibits, and large container, and they create a landscape in the container with small plants and figurines and whatnot. And she came in and the smile hurt. Her smile hurt me because it was so big and she was so excited.
I was age 19 the first year, 20 years the second, and 21 years old the third year. I won 7 champion trophies for those 3 paintings. I also had a painting of George Washington I won for the bicentennial.
My name's Patrick Ryan. I went to school in Goodland, lived on a farm outside of that town. My mother has always been very much involved in photography, and I mean consistently. That's her main hobby. I travel a lot, and so I had some photos that, at the instigation of my mother, said, you know, maybe we should put these in the fair and let some people see them. And when you do any type of artwork, I think you have a little bit of little trepidation in going out there and sharing that with other people, but it's been fun. So just these past few years, I started entering a few amateur pictures.
The floor was a major issue. One day during a judging, that floor gave out and people fell into the hole. Not all the way in, but you know, it was dangerous.
The floors are wooden floors, and they rotted out from the coons living underneath there probably, because the coons, they run in and out of there, and the floors were pretty bad shape. So we're going to build in back in wood, and we decided to put concrete in. The board wanted to demolish the building several times because it was in poor repair. And they'd talk about, we ought to just remodel it, just tear it down and build a new one. I was one of them that didn't want to do that.
Buildings like this don't get built again. It won't get built again. And I think you have to kind of make sure that people understand that it takes less money in the long run to keep a building like this operational than the alternative, because you'll be probably disappointed. It's not that you can't make new memories in those new places and have a nice time, but there's something that history, you know, it soaks into these buildings a little easier than it does a metal barn, in my opinion.
You know, there's so much going on out at the fair, and you know, there's a schedule. It's hot, there's animals, there's kids, there's amusements, all these distractions. It's very easy to breeze by these things and maybe not appreciate them for what they are.
I think when old things go away, our memories of them sometimes fade, and we can't bring it back. And once they are gone, they don't come back, except in our old minds, like Janet and Rich remember so many things. We don't want them to go away.
That building allows us a human connection. It serves as the focal point for that connection. It allows us to showcase our arts, whether domestic or fine. It's the socialization. It's the connectivity in the community. It's the history. It's holding on to our histories. But that the one continuous thread that runs through all of us is our fair, working together and pulling together as a team to show everybody else who doesn't do that what a fair's like.